بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلي وسلم على أشرف خلق الله سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. أما بعد, my dearly beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I welcome you all to the second episode, inshallah, of the life of our beloved Prophet Mousa alayhi salatu wassalam. In the first episode, we very briefly looked at the environment in which Mousa alayhi salatu wassalam was to be born in, the harshness and the evilness and the vileness of Pharaoh in terms of killing the newborn babies and allowing the females, or sparing their lives rather, for his despicable and vile reasons. Moreover, we looked at the importance of trying to do whatever you possibly and physically can do to survive a situation, and not sit there acting as a victim to external environmental pressure, or being a victim of the consequences of the external consequences around you. So Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam's mother could have just sat there and just accepted the fate that awaits her, just like the other 1,000 households where 1,000 new baby borns were killed over a period of time from 2 villages of the children of Israel. She could have sat there and waited for that, but in fact she did everything she possibly can to protect her son Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam. Now, today, before I started off going back into the life of Prophet Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam, I wanted to remind you all of a verse from the Quran. This verse is from Surah Al-Anfal, verse 24, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here,
يا أيها الذين آمنوا استجيبوا لله وللرسول إذا دعاكم لما يحييكم.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse 24, Surah Al-Anfal, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, are you those who believe? Respond to the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger when they call upon you to that which will give you life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never called us to anything that has not benefited us in this dunya and akhirah. He has told us to worship Him and Him alone. He has prescribed upon us the prayers. He has prescribed upon us zakat. He has prescribed upon us Psalm, fasting of Ramadan. And He has asked us, if we can, physically and financially, are able to go to Hajj, then we should do it. The Prophet Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us how to act out these pillars of Islam, has taught us how to be kind and nice to people. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse 24, respond to the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this will give you life, this will better your existence in this dunya. And this is where the beauty of learning verses of the Quran, this is where the beauty of attending bayan classes and classes that talk about Quran, because every single bayan, every single talk, every single tafsir lesson that you go to is actually a means of you bettering your life, because it's from the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the knowledge that we need in order to understand this beloved Quran. Ameen. As for today's episode, I just wanted to start off with identifying who Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam is. Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam, brother to Harun and Maryam. His father is Imran. Now Imran is actually related to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. If we were to look at the family chain of Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam, we'll see that how it starts off actually with Yaqub alayhi salam. Yaqub alayhi salam's other name was Israel. He had 12 sons, amongst them is our beloved Prophet Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. Now the beloved Prophet Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam had a brother called Lawi. And Lawi had a son called Fahith. Fahith had a son called Imran, and he is the father of our beloved Prophet Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam. And so therefore there is a direct link between Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam and Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. But it's stated that the time difference between Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam and Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam is 400 years. So you can imagine they lived longer, and then from generation to generation, and then Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam came. today's episode, I just wanted to focus mainly in the first part of it on the origins of Prophet Mousa salam and Egypt. The children of Israel are the sons of Yaqub salam, and they came into Egypt as guests. But the story did not start there. The story, I'll take you all 400 years back, before the birth of Prophet Mousa salam. The story started off with 10 jealous boys, jealous of their younger brother called Yusuf salam, because Yaqub, their father, loved him and gave him special attention. So when they plotted to kill their brother, they asked permission to take him with them, to play with them, and they decided to kill him. But then eventually Allah saved Prophet Yusuf salam from such a fate, and one of them suggested, let's just throw him in down a well, and whatever caravan comes past this well will pick him up and take him away, and at least we'll never see him again, and hopefully our father will give us more attention now. The story is very well documented over YouTube. There'll be abundance of sheikhs and loads of talks about the story of Yusuf salam in quite a lot of depth, but I just wanted to condense it very quickly so that we tie it in very quickly to the Prophet Mousa salam. So Yusuf salam was in the well, then he got picked up by one of the caravans. He was sold very cheaply, and eventually found his way into the Grand Palace in Egypt. There the wife of the ruler tried to seduce him, but she couldn't, and then he was put into prison because he would not succumb to her demand. In the prison he met two people who told Yusuf salam about their dreams. One of them was to die and the other one was to be a servant to the ruler. Yusuf salam asked this person to mention his name to the ruler, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that person forget talking to the ruler about Yusuf, who was in the prison, because one of the Mufassirin said that because he was relying on a human, he was relying on a human intervention to save him from prison, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to teach him a bit of a lesson, and only Allah knows best, and only Allah knows how true that explanation can be. But then Yusuf salam remained in prison until the ruler had a dream of 7 cows and being eaten, and the entire story is documented in Surah Yusuf, and you can refer to that and the tafsir of that. But then when Yusuf salam explained the dream, he was able to wow the ruler about his skills and his mind frame and his strategic view on how to solve the current issue or the crisis that was affecting the world. It's basically, in short, it was a recession, and with resources being so short, lack of resources, lack of any form of economical positive outlook, Yusuf was managed to drive this country out of recession and has helped it better its position through his strategic planning. Now, the ruler actually placed him as the Councillor of Exchequer, having seen how honest he is and how fair he is and how an amazing person he is, basically. So what the ruler did was he placed him there, and he had granted him the best of any treatment and would give him anything. So you can see a change of how he was with his brothers and being treated unfairly, and how he eventually became the Councillor of Exchequer of this entire world, because Egypt was the global dominating civilization at that time. Now, Yusuf salam, as well as being a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was an honest person and a fair person and a just. He would establish justice wherever he goes. He would never accept injustice upon nobody at no one's expense. He would not want to be seen or associated with injustice, and he will try whatever he can to be as fair and as just as he can. So one of his decrees, or one of the main things that have come out from him being the counselor, was that he was to provide to whoever turns up asking for like some help the equivalent of what one donkey can carry, and it was just one known quantity, and he would give it to anybody irregardless of their citizenship status, whether they're residents or citizenship. But as you know, the empire of Egypt was vast, so it had so many people from all around the Egyptian empire would come to Yusuf salam, and he will give them all the same amount irregardless of their class or status. And so now the Egyptians in Egypt loved Yusuf. Now, but the thing is, Egypt at the time of Yusuf salam was not ruled by the Egyptians. The Egyptians were actually citizens in Egypt, and they were occupied by a group of people called the Hyksos. Pardon me and please forgive me because I'm not too sure or familiar with the English exact pronunciation of it, but something along the lines of Hyksos as well. Hyksos was a tribe of people from the Far Eastern part of Asia. They left their countries and their places. The Hyksos were a tribe from Eastern Asia. They have migrated across the lands, occupying each territory along the way. They've gone as far as Iraq, and then they've gone to Syria, they've gone to Palestine, and they've reached Egypt. So they've occupied Egypt for almost 200 years. They were barbaric, vile, they were unjust, they would punish the Egyptians, but that's them being dominant. They're trying to suppress those whom they occupied. So what these Hyksos did was they tried everything they can to be dominant and powerful. They found that this is only adding to the Egyptian hatred towards them. So what they ended up doing is that they found that Yusuf's the best person to be a middle person between the Egyptians and the Hyksos people. He's known for his honesty. He was the best person, so he was the most loved character by both the Hyksos and the Egyptian. He treated them both fairly. He never accepted injustice done on the Egyptians by the Hyksos, but never was seen as and moreover, he was never seen as an aid to these Hyksos people when they oppressed the Egyptians. So, places Egypt, Hyksos ran and ruled Egypt. The Egyptian people hated the Hyksos because of their oppression, and moreover, the Egyptians are still known for their pride and self-respect. They did not like the fact that they were ruled by somebody else than their own. What had happened was that he would make sure that everything was fair. But as he got older, he realized his job here as a prophet is coming to an end. He knew that his brothers were not as fair or as just as he is. He knew that they're going to do something that will cause misery, that will bring misery upon them. And so he prophesied or had this vision. And before he died, he said, I can see that there will be somebody from the children of Israel who will come and save the children of Israel from an injustice and take them to light. He will make them victorious after humiliation, and he will bring back their rights or that had been taken away from them. So he prophesied this, Yusuf ﷺ, and clearly, as we all know now, that Yusuf ﷺ is talking about Prophet Mousa ﷺ. Yusuf ﷺ, being loved and respected by the Egyptians and the Hyksos, has asked permission from Hyksos to grant his family a place to stay with him in Egypt, and he has asked them as guests to come into Egypt so that he can be close to them, and the fact that he can't just leave his post and just go to where the children of Israel were. So he had asked permission from Hyksos, and Hyksos has granted him permission to bring his family over So you can imagine there was 11 brothers, and they're all sons and the grandsons, and Yaqub alayhi salam, the father, they had all come to Egypt. And there was roughly about 60 of them. Once they've arrived into Egypt, the ruler decided to give them the best and most agricultural land they can get, somewhere that's quite next to the Nile River, where water is not going to be an issue, quite fertile ground, best thing for farming. So he said, I'm going to give it to them as a reward, as a gesture of kindness, because Yusuf meant a lot to them. But Yusuf alayhi realized and knew that this gift was going to be a result of an injustice that will be carried out. So what he knew will happen is that Hyksos are going to just go and occupy a land from one of the Egyptians, and then just end up just giving it to the it might just end up just giving it to the children of Israel, and so unfairly giving away someone else's land to the children of Israel. And Yusuf alayhi did not want to be associated or seen as somebody who's unjust or taking somebody else's land. But Yusuf alayhi being diplomatic in this situation, what he had done is that he had approached the ruler and very humbly declined that land. But the way he said it, he said to the ruler, we are not people of farming. We are not really bothered about farming, and so by giving us that land, you will render us, it will be quite useless. I'd rather somebody else makes use of it. And so therefore, we are more of a shepherd, so if you just give us a nice little plot of land outside the outskirts of the city, where our sheep can just go and eat and graze as they like, and that would be much more nicer than taking on a farm. And so he gave them a land called Al-Ghassan or Ghassan. This plot of land is somewhat to the south of the River Nile, southeast of the River Nile, and it's quite far, and it's not too close to the main city, and in a way so that Yusuf alayhi does not get tarnished by the injustice of the Hyksos. Now, there's one rule. If you are being unfair and unjust to anybody, irregardless of their faith, their religion, their belief, what they have done to you, if you're being unjust and unfair to them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send somebody to avenge for that person. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept injustice occurring at any time, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send somebody stronger and mightier than yourself and oppress you and be unjust to yourself. It's just what goes around comes around, and that's something we all know happens, and we all know is for sure. So the Hyksos are there oppressing the Egyptians. The Hyksos were oppressors, they were unjust, they were treating the Egyptians unfairly and unjustly, and they were hated by the Egyptians. Yusuf alayhi always drew and pulled himself away from the situation. He was never seen helping them. And then the day came when Prophet Yaqub ﷺ had passed away, and then Prophet Yusuf ﷺ had passed away. And now the children of Israel, the brothers of Yusuf ﷺ, found themselves in a situation that, we will never be in Yusuf's level. We will never take on his post. And therefore, we can't just allow ourselves to be just normal citizens. We've got to try and better ourselves and be more higher status in this country. So what they did was that they would see injustice happen in front of them and would never condemn it. If anything, they will condone it. They will support whoever the soldier is and say, yeah, you're doing right, and these Egyptians, they deserve it, they're the scums. Just hit them harder and they'll just walk away. They would never stop injustice. They have been an aid to the Hyksos civilization against the Egyptian people. Now the Egyptians hated the Hyksos, but now they've got another people that they hated, the children of Israel. They didn't like that because they didn't do anything physically to harm the Egyptians. They didn't do anything to they didn't do any injustice to the Egyptians, but they were just associated and seen with the oppressors. They were there next to them. And that's by them supporting them and cheering them on, and pretending that they would never say anything against any oppression happening in front of them. And that's one thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to know, is that not only that injustice is not acceptable in Islam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never accepts it from you as an excuse that you didn't know, or that you didn't say anything. But the more to the point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to know the fact is being quiet about injustice, even though you're not doing the injustice or you're not doing the oppression, will put you in the same light as oppressors and those who are unjust. So when you see a husband treating his wife unfairly, or the other way around, a son treating his parents unfairly, people walking past and being unfair or unjust to people and oppressing them, and you just walking past, not even something inside you hurting you, you can potentially put yourself amongst those who are oppressors. So it's your own right to stop this oppression. If you can't with your hand, then with your mouth. If you're not, with your heart at least. Because at the end of the day, this is munkar that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept. Now, the children of Israel, after their brother had passed away, they tried to better their status on the account of the Egyptians, and they're cheering and supporting the Hyksos when they were oppressing the Egyptians. So the Egyptians hated them and hated the Hyksos. And subhanallah ta'ala, it was only a matter of time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent one person called Uhmus. Uhmus was a leader, an Egyptian leader, who came, and not only did he destroy the entire Hyksos army and their entire population, what he did was he chased those who flew away from Egypt and chased them all the way to Syria. So Egypt and then Syria is quite next to it, well, almost next to it. He chased them all the way to Syria just to make sure that he has killed every single one of them, and he made sure that none of their civilization remains. When the army and when Ahmus came back into Egypt after the battles of trying to rid that sort of stretch, the Arabian stretch there, from the Hyksos, he turned back to all those who have aided and helped the Hyksos. And clearly, who was the first target? They were the children of Israel. Yeah, they did not physically oppress the Egyptians, but they were an aid to an oppressor. So what had happened? He had taken 6 different decisions to punish the children of Israel for the crime that they have committed. Though they didn't do physically, but they were happy that it was happening under their eyes. So what Ahmus had declared and decided should happen to the children of Israel, and bear in mind, these are the brothers of Prophet Yusuf after he had passed away. First thing he has declared, that the children of Israel will no longer be free men and women. They will forever remain as slaves in our country. But bear in mind, they came as guests. They came from an invitation from Yusuf to come and be next to him. But now, things have changed. The Hyksos civilization is fallen, and so now they've become trapped in the country. So they are slaves. They were to be moved from the land that they were and put in a worse land, almost where the dump of the River Nile was. So he had split them up, so that's 2, he split them up so that they don't sit next to each other and unite eventually. So he's divided them, and he's put their 2 villages somewhat nearest to the worst points next to the River Nile. So obviously it's not going to be a fertile ground, it's going to be just the worst parts. He stopped them from education, which was making sure that they remain forever ignorant and weak, and they can't intellectually think for themselves. And lastly, he would make sure that they were to work for free. They had to work just to survive. Yeah, they'll be given the very basics in terms of food, in terms of eating, but made sure that they work for no money, just in case they use this money later on to become a bit stronger, to gain some education, or to gain any form of freedom from their masters. So quite big decisions. Being slaves, kicked away from the land that they had into the worse places. They had small huts and small places and just barely crumbling houses given to them. So in a way, it was not safe for them in their little towns. And they were split into two different colonies, and one in the north, one in the south. No education, they were not given any education, and they were to work for free. And so all of this, all these 6 factors mainly contributed towards an utter humiliation that just went right to their core. They will never ever talk against somebody's decision. They would forever be unjustly and unfairly treated and not say a word. And so this is the story of how children of Israel came into Egypt. They initially came as 60 people as guests of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, who was the favorite person in the country. They were seen as unfair and unjust when their brother passed away. They helped the Hyksos oppress the Egyptians even more. They eventually found themselves, the Hyksos found themselves being kicked out and killed, even chased as far as other countries. Ahmuz came back and tried sorting out all those allies of the Hyksos civilization. Children of Israel had their 6 different punishments in terms of being a slave, kicked out of their own land. They were to have no education and they were to work for free. They were divided as colonies, and they were to live in the most worst and awful conditions in Egypt. And so this oppression continued until 400 years down the line, Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam was born from this household, the children of Israel, where the children of Israel had passed on the humiliating attitude, the weakness attitude, the powerless attitude to their sons. So one generation after another generation, they would not be able to say anything, they were not able to do anything. Injustice would happen time and time again, and they can't do anything or say anything about it. And so from this humiliating attitude, after being oppressed by Ahmuz, you see, the point is, so from this they were humiliated. They could not fight for their own rights. They could not do anything to help themselves, and they could not save themselves. So from all of this, from this new decree that has been established by the new ruler, the new Egyptian ruler of Egypt, after 200 years of occupation from the Hyksos, now he has declared that the children of Israel will forever become slaves. They will be kicked out of their land and come to the worst points. They will live in humiliating conditions, and they'll be split, no education, and they were to work for free. Cause this kind of humiliating attitude in them, this weak, this pessimistic thing right to their core. And the thing is, when parents have this, they pass it on to their kids. And when everyone else around you has the same attitude, the kids, they will all grow up with the same thing. And the fact that they were not allowed to look up and try and aspire to become better people, they couldn't do that, made them all in that same characteristics, and they would all pass it on from one generation on to another. And now I bring you all back to the life when the Prophet Mousa ﷺ was born. This entire attitude was still there, and Mousa ﷺ being born in an environment around this, clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that this is not the attitude that Mousa was to be grown up in. So subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want Prophet Mousa ﷺ to be born in such an environment where everyone's pessimistic, everyone's doubtful in their own ability, they have no self-confidence, self-respect, they would just accept injustice. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Prophet Mousa ﷺ was born, sent this wahi, or this instinct, to Yukabit, Mousa ﷺ's mother, and asked her if she's fearful about her son, to take him and put him in a basket and throw this basket onto the river. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told her that I will confirm that he will come back to you. So she had this instinct. Obviously, it's not a wahi, it's not a Quran from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it was an instinct given to her because she was quite pious. So what had happened is that this river, the current, pushed the basket from where the children of Israel is, right to the shores that were next to the palace of Pharaoh. So you can imagine, subhanAllah ta'ala, how a palace, a royal palace like Pharaoh's one, would be surrounded by soldiers, would be surrounded by all the maids, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had sent Mousa right to the palace of Pharaoh. So subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want Mousa to grow up in such an environment where there's a lot of pessimism, a lot of people who didn't have enough self-respect and self-confidence in themselves and their abilities, who are happy to be treated unfairly and unjust. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instilled into Yukabid, his mother, this whole instinct to take Mousa salam, put him in a basket and put him in the river, and the river will take him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had promised her that he will come back to her. If one was to look and focus and quite really look into the whole journey of Mousa right to Pharaoh's palace, you would see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want Mousa to grow up in an environment where people are so humiliated. The children of Israel, they are humiliated. They've lost self-respect and self-confidence in themselves. Happy, or not happy, but just willingly accept injustice and to be treated unfairly, not to ask for your own right. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want him to grow up in such an environment, because inevitably he will be affected by these characteristics and traits, and therefore will not make a perfect prophet. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared upon him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it in the Quran, وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي وَلِتُصْنَعَ عَلَى عَيْنِي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Mousa that from your birth I have made sure that I put in front of you things that will make you a better person. And so the current took the basket right to the shores that is by the palace of Pharaoh. Now Pharaoh had all his maids and all the servants, but subhanAllah ta'ala, one source say that Asya, Pharaoh's wife, was the one by the shore, and some people say that it was one of her maids who saw this basket. Either way, whoever saw it picked up this basket and took it to Asya, or Asya saw this basket and opened it to reveal the most beautiful baby she has seen. Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to us in the Quran when he said it to Mousa, وَأَلْقَيْتُ عَلَيْكَ مَحَبَّةً مِنِّي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made whoever sees Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam just fall in love with him. So loved, so joyful. Nobody, irregardless of how heartless they are, can't just fall in love with Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam. So Asya fell in love with him. People, the maids, they all kind of just felt warm to Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam. And so she went direct to Pharaoh and had asked Pharaoh, can we keep him? Pharaoh quickly rushed to order people to go and kill his son. Kill this, it's a baby boy. We don't know the source. It could be from the children of Israel. So therefore, he should be killed. Asya pleaded with Pharaoh and said to him, we can take him as a son, because Asya could not give birth, or she did not have any kids of her own at that particular stage. So she asked Pharaoh, her husband, she pleaded with him, we'll keep him as ours, we'll look after him and treat him like ours, and he'll become ours. You can't just look after somebody, treat him well, and then he'll come back and attack you. So clearly he will definitely be, if anything, an exception to your dream. So he can't be the one who will kill you. And eventually he gave in to Asya's request and have accepted Mousa as as a prince So they chose the name Mousa. Mousa was a Hebrew name that means something picked up from the sea. So it's two words actually put to one, or two parts of a word put into one, and that came up with Mousa. And from then on, he was known as Prince Mousa. But at the same time, we're looking at when Yukabit had put the basket into the river, in the river, her heart was pounding. She was so scared, so worried about her son. So she had asked Miriam, Musa alayhi salatu salam's sister, to follow the basket. And as the basket reached the shores, she was running parallel to the basket and had seen where it had gone. Some sources say that she was already in the palace there, or she actually worked in the palace, and therefore she was able to go in. Now what happened was that once Prince Musa had his own established place in the palace, now they had to make sure that they get a proper nanny and somebody who can breastfeed Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Obviously, as far as the palace is concerned, he was just Prince Musa alone. So they arranged for the best nannies that they can get in the palace to come over. Asya obviously made sure that she oversees who looks after Musa, or her new adopted son. So all the nannies would come and try to hold Musa and try to breastfeed him, and he would have none of it. He would not come near the lady. He would obviously try and scream and shout and do whatever he can to avoid that lady, whatever a 2-month-old baby can do, I suppose. So they kept from one nanny to another, and until they got a bit frustrated and tired. Then at that point, Farhan was present there. At that point, a girl walks into the palace and tells them, "هل أدلكم على من يكفله?" Can I guide you all to somebody who can sponsor? Well, the word yakfulu is literally meant as sponsor him, but the word is more somebody who's going to look after him, and I'm sure he will be the best person to you guys. The sheer shock in Farhan that, hold on a minute, who are you? That's according to the source that if she doesn't work there. At that point, Farhan wasn't too pleased that somebody's speaking without his permission, but the situation was just getting too bad. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was crying and shouting, just like 2-month-old babies do. And at that point, Farhan was happy to do anything and listen to anybody. So Maryam said to Musa alayhi salatu, said to Farhan that I will get you somebody who will look after him, and he's quite, and she will look after him properly. They brought Yukabit into the palace, and as soon as Yukabit held her son Musa, and obviously she had to make sure that she doesn't reveal any attachment. She has to pretend that this is a boy that she has just seen him for the first time. And as soon as she held him, he stopped crying instantly. At that point, it was just to show that, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just brought that bond of a mum to a son, and a 2-month-old baby just completely felt at ease with his real mum, with his mum. But as far as Farhan's concerned, she's just one lady from the children of Israel. So he's accepted her. From now on, you receive your salary, and you'll be looked after, and we've got to make sure about your welfare, because ultimately he is the nanny of the prince. Therefore, whatever harms her will harm the prince, and therefore she got to make sure. For subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away her son for that day or so, or part of the day. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only gave her back her son, but gave her a regular income, a job, and to be quite frankly, better looked after compared to the rest of the people. As far as they're concerned, Musa was their son, and she's just a nanny. But obviously, down the line, the truth will be revealed eventually. But they kept on with this arrangement. Asiya loved Musa and treated him like a son, looked after him, and made sure that he was given everything that he deserves. everything a mother can offer her son, she has done it. Considering her status in the palace, she's a wife of Pharaoh, so she can afford the best of everything for him. So he was properly treated with a lot of love, a lot of respect, and a lot of dignity compared to all the other children of Israel. Pharaoh, obviously, being the vile, evil person he is, did not treat Mousa warmly. He did not really love Mousa, but Pharaoh just accepted what Asya, and just accepted a request from his wife, which shows that he may have some ounce of respect, though be that just a very small one. But subhanallah, Allah has made this work. Subhanallah, this is pretty much the end of what I'd like to mention in today's episode. We see that from the story of Yukabid and how she had to lose her son for that day, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returned her more than that. That's something for us to realize. Yeah, we may lose stuff today, we may lose something today or tomorrow or for a week or two, but then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will return us better than that in most cases. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to reward you in the akhirah, then it will be hundreds and thousands of times more than what you've lost. So you are to accept the will and the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter what happens to you, you may not foresee, or you may not perceive or be able to tell what happens after it as a result, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has something in store for you that is much better. If you were to refer to Surah Al-Kahf, the story of Mousa and Al-Khidr, as you will see in many episodes later, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever He takes something off you, there's always something much bigger, much larger, much better for you that awaits you. It's just a matter of time between you losing that stuff and you gaining the reward as a result of your sabr. The other thing is that if you look at the story of the children of Israel, the brothers of Yusuf and how they supported the oppressors, Ahmus, eventually by the Egyptians they were seen as oppressors themselves, regardless of how little they did in oppressing the Egyptians, but they were associated with them, they were in the same picture, they did not condemn any oppression or any injustice happening, they accepted it, they were cheering and rooting the Oxus people, and so eventually they would get punished just like the oppressors themselves. So it's not only that you accepting injustice, but you being associated with injustice. And this is something their brother Yusuf tried to avoid by not appearing next to these oppressors, never helping them and never being with them and never helping them in any way or shape or form. So they were seen as oppressors. Not only that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us, well, from the story and history showed us that if you're being unjust, expect somebody stronger than you to come and take away try and save the people, and will be unjust to yourself, who is much stronger and mightier than you. But where the problem lies, and this is what happened to the Egyptians, is that not only were they oppressed by these tribes, these Oxus people, but they have come back to take their rights and be unjust to these people who are unjust. But then the problem is they went beyond, they were further away from justice. So not only did they take or avenge back or take revenge, but they went beyond that. So they were over oppressors. Now the problem is, not only did they put them, now the problem here with that is that now they will come across as oppressors themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send somebody much mightier, much stronger than them to take away this status of them, take this status away from them, because oppression is never allowed in Allah and to the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He would never let it continue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will revenge back. And so you will see later on how Pharaoh, he's part of this, he's one of the Egyptians who his oppression gone beyond any scale. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show us later on that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will will revenge back for all the people and all those who have been oppressed in the form of Pharaoh drowning. But before that, experiencing quite punishing, loads of punishments before that. And so his life was miserable anyway. And that's the life of an oppressor. Yeah, he may have gained a small gain over you in one day, one moment. But then the rest of his life, or towards the end of his life, if he did not do tawbah, if he did not repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, did not seek forgiveness from the people whom he oppressed, and did not return back whatever he has taken unlawfully, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish this person in this dunya and hereafter in hellfire. This is the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do not oppress people. Do not be unjust. Do not help those who are unjust. Always have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken anything off you, remember, it's for your own good. In actual fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave it to you in the first place anyway. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to take it, it's for him to give something back to you 10, 20 times better than what you have lost in this dunya and in the Jannah, inshaAllah ta'ala. I hope this episode was much more informative than you anticipated, and I hope it filled a lot of gaps and answered a few questions. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help me convey the rest of the story of Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam in the way that is befitting to our beloved Prophet Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam. Last thing, if you've got any questions about the Prophet Mousa alayhi salatu wasalam, continue until the end of the series. If you still do have the questions, please, you can send me an email, mydeenismylife@googlemail.com, or through the YouTube page, or through Twitter, and I'll be very happy to try my utter best to try and answer them. If I personally don't know the answer, I will get the answer for you and give you the reference to it. I hope you've learned a little bit more. I bid you all farewell, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
ربي أرقى دوما بالروح علي الدوني دوما بالروح علي